Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Anxiety is a word we hear more and more in today's society. We may have heard that someone we know suffers from a type of anxiety disorder, and we may have also heard that anxiety is on the rise among the young population. Many individuals describe anxiety as a fear for something. Some say it's an irrational feeling of dread. Some even associate it with depression. So what exactly is anxiety? To answer this question, we will be examining the concept of anxiety by the existentialist philosopher Søren Kierkegaard. Søren Kierkegaard was born on May 5, 1813 in Copenhagen, Denmark, and he is generally considered to be the first existentialist philosopher. The concept of anxiety was written in 1844 and is considered one of Kierkegaard's most prominent works. So let us dive into the work by first discussing what anxiety is to Kierkegaard and how it contrasts to other similar human conditions. Some of us may have a tough time drawing a line between fear and anxiety. But Kierkegaard clearly differentiated between the two when he stated, "The concept of anxiety is hardly ever seen treated in psychology, so I must point out that it differs altogether from fear in similar concepts that refer to something definite. Whereas anxiety is freedom's actuality as the possibility of possibility. For this reason, anxiety will not be found in the beast, just because in its nature, the beast does not possess the character of spirit." Let's break down this quote. So here, he makes the distinction between fear and anxiety by stating that fear is where we are afraid of something definite. We feel fear towards something. We are afraid of something specific, and there is always an object of fear. Anxiety, in contrast, does not need something definite and concrete. We can all experience anxiety about seemingly nothing, which makes anxiety a much more complex human state compared to fear. So the question still remains, what is anxiety? Let's look at the end of the first sentence from this quote. Anxiety is freedom's actuality as the possibility of possibility. And now let's recall the quote from the very beginning of this video. Anxiety is the dizziness of freedom. Just from these two fragments, it is evident that Kierkegaard saw a very strong connection between anxiety and freedom. In fact, this is the central idea of this work. The idea that anxiety emerges from the possibility for something to occur. The idea that anxiety springs up within us in the face of freedom and choices. Anxiety can be compared with dizziness. He whose eye happens to look down into the yawning abyss becomes dizzy. But what is the reason? It is just as much his own eye as the abyss, for suppose he had not looked down. It is in this way that anxiety is the dizziness of freedom that emerges when spirit wants to posit the synthesis, and freedom now looks down into its own possibility, and then grabs hold of finiteness to support itself. In this dizziness, freedom subsides. Here, Kierkegaard brings up as an example a man standing on the edge of a precipice, looking downward. At this point, the man faces the possibility of falling into the abyss, and even if he won't do so on purpose, the possibility still exists in front of him. The existence of such possibility causes a dizziness in him, the dizziness of freedom, which, according to Kierkegaard, is anxiety. And the first occurrence of this dizziness of freedom, of anxiety, is when Adam and Eve ate the forbidden fruit. Adam and Eve. Kierkegaard sees Adam's choice to eat the forbidden fruit as the first instance of human anxiety, stemming from the awareness of freedom and responsibility. For those of us unfamiliar with the story of Adam and Eve, here is a brief summary. God creates Adam, the first man, and places him in the Garden of Eden. Next, God creates Eve, the first woman, from one of Adam's ribs. Adam and Eve live together in paradise in the Garden of Eden, and they are free to eat from any tree except the tree of knowledge of good and evil. A serpent tempts Eve to eat the fruit from the forbidden tree. Eve does so and gives some to Adam, who also partakes in the consumption of the forbidden fruit. After eating the forbidden fruit, Adam and Eve realize they are naked and feel shame for the first time and attempt to hide from God. As a consequence, God punishes Adam and Eve by banishing the two from the Garden of Eden. Kierkegaard argued that in this story, Adam experiences anxiety for the very first time, not when he is punished or when he eats the forbidden fruit, but when he realizes there is a choice to either eat or not eat the fruit. And when does Adam catch onto this possibility? When God specifically prohibits him and Eve from eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Kierkegaard writes, "The prohibition makes him anxious because it awakens in him freedom's possibility." Here, Kierkegaard is doubling down on the idea that anxiety comes from freedom, but that is not the only reason why he wrote extensively on the story of Adam and Eve. He also wanted to illustrate that anxiety precedes sin. Again, Kierkegaard is arguing that the prohibition of eating from the tree of knowledge of good and evil is what made Adam anxious, not the act itself or the consequences following it. Concept of anxiety. So, by arguing that anxiety originates from freedom, what is Kierkegaard trying to tell us? He is revealing to us that anxiety is a natural part of human existence. Today, a lot of people view anxiety as an illness, that if one feels anxiety at any point in their lives, there's something wrong with them and need medical treatment. However, if there's anything to learn from the concept of anxiety, it is this idea that anxiety is an organic part of human life. Anxiety itself is not sin, since it precedes sin. Anxiety is proof that we have freedom and choices. Anxiety is a sign that we might be onto something, that we might be on our way to something meaningful. When we observe children, we find the anxiety more definitely intimated as a seeking after the adventurous, the prodigious, and the mysterious. That there are children in whom this anxiety is not to be found proves nothing, or neither does it exist in the beast, and the less spirit, the less anxiety. This anxiety belongs so essentially to the child that the child will not do without it. Although it alarms, in its sweet anxiousness it also captivates. In all peoples where the childlike is preserved as dreaming spirit, there is this anxiety. The profounder the anxiety, the profounder the people. Only a prosaic stupidity will think of it as a disorder. Kierkegaard isn't advocating for a life filled with constant anxiety, but he is trying to tell us that avoiding anxiety altogether is not the solution. Less anxiety also means less spirit within us. We are less authentic when we avoid anxiety. We are much less likely to find meaning in our lives and within ourselves if we cannot view anxiety as a natural human condition, because seizing anxiety would be to seize all freedom, and ultimately to cease being a spirited human. A very similar idea is presented in Escape from Freedom by Erich Fromm, which we have covered extensively in previous videos. Erich Fromm believed that if we don't have the right kind of relationship with freedom, we will end up letting society control us and ultimately go insane. Similar to Fromm's take on freedom, Kierkegaard believed that our relationship with anxiety can make or break us. If we can develop the strength and courage to face our anxiety, rather than avoiding it or letting it conquer us, then we can tackle almost anything that life throws at us. If we limit ourselves and only live inside our comfort zones by eliminating anxiety completely, we can still learn about life, but not how to face challenges or deal with certain hardships. But once we learn how to deal with anxiety, we can start to expand our comfort zones. From finitude, one can learn much, but not how to be anxious, except in a very mediocre and corrupting sense. Anyone who has truly learned how to be anxious, on the other hand, will tread as if a dance when the anxieties of finitude strike up, and when finitude's apprentices lose wit and courage. If we can handle anxiety stemming from the freedom of choice, it can really form us in a positive way. But how can we face anxiety? According to Kierkegaard, it comes down to faith. Anxiety is freedom's possibility. This anxiety alone is, through faith, absolutely formative, since it consumes all finite ends, discovers all their deceptions. When the individual, through anxiety, is formed to faith, anxiety will then eradicate what it itself produces. Though Kierkegaard was a Christian, the word faith here does not need to be interpreted strictly in a religious sense. One of the definitions for faith in the Merriam-Webster dictionary is firm belief in something for which there is no proof. When we are faced with a tough decision, sometimes we just have to trust ourselves without any further validation or evidence. Obviously, we do not want to be making reckless decisions on a regular basis. But if we are trying to get somewhere further in life than we have been in the past, there will certainly be a time where no matter how much information or skills we have obtained, we are still faced with difficult life choices. In those moments, we all need a form of unwavering belief in ourselves to choose a path, in order to get past the anxiety that naturally springs up, and to discover our possibilities and capabilities. Kierkegaard is calling for all of us to look at anxiety in the face. Kierkegaard is telling us that we do not have to let anxiety take over our lives, but instead to see anxiety as a sign. It is a signal from our psyche and spirit within, forcing us to question whether our choices align with our deepest values or not. Do these decisions align with your principles and goals? That is what anxiety is asking all of us. So let us not turn our backs to anxiety, but instead welcome it as a necessity of life. Let us embrace anxiety with grace, because anxiety will reveal our true potential. Allow me to end the video with one last quote. I will, however, say this, that it is an adventure that every human being has to live through, learning to be anxious so as not to be ruined either by never having been in anxiety or by sinking into it. Whoever has learned to be anxious in the right way has learned the ultimate. Thank you for watching.